What's up, friends? Happy Tuesday. Happy Dork Discourse Partay, baby. You thought we were going to stop? No, you didn't. We didn't say we were going to stop. Nobody thought we were going to stop. Nobody. Nobody thought we were going to stop. But of course, just because the Acolyte has come to a close, that doesn't mean we still have stuff to talk about. And if you joined us last week for the finale, which feels like it was an eternity ago at this point,
yes,
you'll remember that I had to wake up at like 5 o'clock in the morning following that night for exciting reasons. I had a long week of work, but it was great. So I had to cut that stream very short. But Tom had quite a lot of things to say. Tom was especially excited. We've been getting absolutely roasted in our comment section begging for a season 2 up here. However, we are going to continue to pump this and manifest this into the ether because that's exactly what Leslie Headland has said herself. She has come out and, you know, people asking what's the most supportive way that we can help encourage and motivate a season 2. And she's made it plainly clear, whoever you are, if you have any sort of platform, even if you don't, even if you're just a voice out there on the internet in the Star Wars fandom, by all means, voice your desire for a season 2.
Yep.
And that's the best thing we can do. And I think Tom made it abundantly clear. I was still a little bit grieving over Master Soul last week, but Tom made it very clear that we're both on the same page, that we would love to see this go down a season 2 route. So that's what we have gathered here today for. And also to just say hello and follow up. It has been a week. Sometimes people's opinions change when you're fresh, you know, fresh off the episode versus when you've let it had time to simmer. So we're checking in with everybody to see how y'all feel after a week of digesting and reading others' opinions and whatnot. So thank y'all for joining us in spite of not having an episode to watch tonight. But shout out to the crew. We got Stanley, Sean, Charlie. I think I saw Alice up in the early gang. Blue Winter, Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire fan, Chosen One. Great name. Hello, hello.
I didn't know you could have that many characters.
I didn't know either. I think you might have set a Guinness World Record. Daniel Berry Sports, hello, happy Tuesday to you. Let's go, team. Thank y'all for joining. Yes, in spite of we don't have anything we're necessarily pre-gaming for. However, that means we can also go a little bit longer should the desire arise. If we don't want to, we're not cut off at 6 Pacific anymore, sadly, for now. But
until the next Disney Plus 6 p.m. Pacific time release show,
which I think is going to be Skeleton Crew. Which shout out to Sean. Yeah. I saw that you tagged me. I was just busy as frick this week, so I was not very active on social media. However, I did see Skeleton Crew promo is finally surfacing.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, we were talking about it on the McBot stream the other day.
Sean tagged me in a tweet because what's interesting is I think it was a random Twitter account, like just a Star Wars fan who was in, I think they followed up and said that they were just in a Hobby Lobby or something. They were in like a thrift store, like a secondhand shop or something, and saw a poster, like a physical poster from Skeleton Crew. And they posted it on Twitter and they were like, what the flip? And it went viral. And now all these like official Skeleton Crew posters and like director announcements have been dropping. So I feel like this person started it. Have you seen the poster?
I don't know. I don't know if I've seen the poster. Is it just like a standard character poster with...
It actually looked pretty... I love the style. This was what they tweeted. So they just found it like in a shop.
Is that a baby Max Rebo?
Yeah, right? But that's literally the exact photo that this person shared. And so now... Maybe that was a leak. I don't know. But I swear I keep seeing that poster now. Maybe I have to search Skeleton
Which
Crew.
no one can... see what you're looking at.
I know.
We do have technology where we could show them what we're looking at, but for those who haven't seen the poster,
in case it was actually a leak and I'm spreading.
Oh, okay.
But I love. No,
it probably was.
Like
the official Star Wars account has not posted that.
Yeah,
I don't think.
Whoops.
But I mean, yeah, it looks like a standard character poster.
But I love the artwork of it.
You've got a baby Max Rebo on there, which is pretty cool.
Has Star Wars
Blue Elephant
really not posted that yet? I guess we would have noticed. I'm gonna check.
I don't know.
I guess they're still in
Tansem, greetings from Istanbul. Welcome. It's late for you.
For real.
Seriously, late for you. Thanks for hanging out in the middle of the night.
Sorry. All right. Well, anyway, yes. So Skeleton Crew is official. It is happening, y'all. But that is allegedly not until December. So until then, we're going to have to find some other stuff to talk about. However, not for much longer. I mean, we can maybe pivot to House of the Dragon as we near the latter episodes of this second season.
House of the Dragon,
here.
Rings of Power
is
September,
approaching August, I think.
August.
I think it's August.
Oh.
Don't quote me on that.
August.
Also, the Dune Prophecy series, which I want to check out. So there's actually quite a lot in the pipeline. By the way, unrelated to anything we're talking about, new trailer dropped today for the second Joker. Folie Adieu, or don't quote me on that pronunciation. You should watch it. You should. I think it'll change your opinion.
Yeah.
Tom is like, his favorite movie is the first Joker installment.
I love Joker.
Yes.
I love it. I am not too excited about a musical sequel.
I don't think... Watch the trailer, and I think your mind will be changed. However, whenever that got out, that it was going to be a musical, I don't think that's an accurate representation.
Did you watch the first trailer?
Yes.
It was a musical.
This is not as much. Anyway, we'll dial it back in. So... Thank you all for joining us, even though we're not necessarily pre-gaming anything today, but I wanted to have a more actual thorough discussion since we kind of had to log on and then immediately log back off because I needed to edit like my life depended on it and then go to sleep last week. So, John Pitts, what's up? Hope you guys are having a great and awesome day. Shout out to you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, John.
Blue Winter agrees. The Joker was great. Yeah, Tom literally saw that movie in theaters like 5 times.
A musical, says Jason. That's what they're saying.
It's not.
Lady Gaga is Harley Quinn, and
here's why that's inaccurate.
And lots of sing-alongs and songs and
I don't.
Stuff.
I don't.
Watch the first trailer. It's literally looks like a Disney movie, but the Joker.
No, it does not. By any no. All right. Anyway.
Okay. Acolyte. So. One of the shorts that was posted between last week and the finale and this week was talking about, season 2, but then also potentially favorite Disney Plus show that we've gotten so far, the Acolyte.
Oh, yes.
So...
And that's where we got lit up in the comment section.
Yeah, correct. And to be fair, that was me saying that. You just kind of didn't really acknowledge or voice you did not give any type of ranking straight out of the gate. But after a week sitting on it, have you thought about ranking of where this ranks for you in terms of your favorite Disney Plus Star Wars series that have come out?
Oh, God. Andor still has that top seat.
Okay. Andor has her top seat?
Frick, yes.
Yeah.
I've made that known.
Unequivocal top seat?
Well,
unrivaled top seat?
Frankly, like, I mean, Rebels and Clone Wars final season, Clone Wars in general, like, if it comes out to shows, not just
live action Disney Plus shows.
Live action Disney Plus.
Clone Wars finale is probably that's real tough to beat. So, animation aside, live action
Disney Plus, still Andor.
Okay.
It may have to be followed up by Kenobi because just the air, the vibes, the sense of being alive that I felt while that show, the hype surrounding it, even though once the rose-colored glasses kind of came off, I still had some criticisms about Kenobi, but enough time has passed that, like, those kind of any critiques or qualms I might have had pale in comparison to just the whole entire vibe surrounding that show and just the energy in the fandom. Like, nothing has been comparable to that. So, for example, not that should be an influencing factor, but it's like, if you look at the state of the fandom when Kenobi was out versus the state of the fandom now, you can't deny it's a lot more fun to enjoy Star Wars when there is this hype boiling, surrounding it. It feels electric when everybody's equally pumped and excited. So probably Andor, Kenobi, but this in the mix with, like, Book of Boba Fett, Mando, Ahsoka. Am I forgetting something? There's so many shows there's a lot of shows at this point.
I think your options are Mando, Boba, Andor, Ahsoka, Kenobi, Acolyte.
I feel like, yeah.
There's 6.
Yes.
Right?
I don't know where I would rank.
Mando, Boba, Acolyte, Andor, Kenobi.
I don't know where this would rank. I mean,
Yeah.
This is the #1 show for you? This is the top Disney Plus show. I don't ask that as like a condescending question.
It's close. It's close between the shirt and the show that I'm representing here, and the Acolyte. But I think still, I'm gonna go with the Acolyte.
Wow.
Because I think the plot and the experience of watching it from week to week was a constant balance of, okay, yeah, this was answered a lot of stuff and left questions to be answered on to the next week. So I think week to week, this was probably the most enjoyable watching experience, I would say, just because I feel like it was so consistent.
Yeah.
Versus like in watching Kenobi, I mean, the first 2 episodes were peak. Episode 3 up through the first half was like insane. Vader dragging people through this innocent civilians through the street, like complete horror show. And then between that moment and then episode 5, like second half, episode 3 and episode 4, there was a lot of things that was like, how does that happen? Like the whole fire thing, like Vader dragging Kenobi through the fire, and then the droid just comes, grabs him, and it's like Vader doesn't, like, they don't do anything. He just kind of escapes miraculously out of there. And then the whole scene on Fortress Inquisitorius, like the baseball bat saber, which is an infamous criticism and critique. And like, there's just like logistical questions that I had watching those sections that like were pulling me out of it. But then obviously episode 5 of Kenobi is arguably one of the greatest episodes of any show that we've gotten, with the Ewan Hayden flashbacks, and then Vader absolutely
historic
taking Reva to school, and then that shot of Vader and the Grand Inquisitor coming back from like Reva's perspective on the ground, and the Grand Inquisitor's line when they leave, like, goodbye Grand Inquisitor, or whatever he says, and then turns around and you see them walking out, like, oh
yeah,
hard. That episode and that scene in particular goes so hard.
Wow, look at Lord Fowl.
And then
the Acolyte, Ahsoka, Kenobi, and Mandalorian for me. Wow, so Acolyte's up there for you as well. Before we get too much further in our rankings, Sean, member for 9 months, let's go!
Shout out, Sean!
Always will be eternally grateful for you two in this community. Can't wait to see what adventures happen next. Also, Kat, oh my frick, yes, I have to frickin' check my DMs. As I mentioned, I was very, very, very preoccupied this week and was very inactive on social media. I have to get to that. Thank you for the reminder again, Sean. I'm so sorry that it has taken me forever, but y'all know that I'm really bad when it comes to my direct messages. So thank you for your patience. But Sean also makes a good point. I think I agree with this. There's no way that I could rank these shows, to be honest. And I think I agree because... That's
Alice that said that. I can't rank them because they're all different. Oh, never mind. Reading the wrong chat.
But I agree with Alice. I do agree with... That's exactly what I was going to say. Each show has a different strength. And I think the strength of the Acolyte and what is a standout to me is the thrill of it.
Mm-hmm.
The consistency of the story, that there was no lollygagging, no diversion from the task at hand. And I know that's probably biased for us because, you know, I hear people say, for example, that they love Mando season 1, that's their favorite because they love doing something different every episode and it was fun. But I know the two of us, we like to see some overarching, something linear, you know, we like to stay on point.
And the tragedy.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess, is different talking points.
It's like the intensity. For example, there were moments in Andor where they weren't afraid to get intense. And, you know, Andor kind of also mimics Rogue One, which I think is so successful because they weren't afraid to freaking kill everybody off. And that sticks with you because it's like Star Wars doesn't do that too often. So the fact that this show wasn't afraid to do the same, like, I freaking love that because it adds weight, it adds stakes, it adds like finality, you know, it makes you emotional. It's tragic, which is when Star Wars is at its best. In my opinion, so much of Star Wars is tragic. It's like, why is Revenge of the Sith one of the most highly ranked,
It's
at
not
least
your favorite
among
film?
our because it's
it's
freaking
too
upsetting.
tragic.
Yeah, it toes the line. It borders on being too tragic and too traumatic for me.
That's why it's the best, because it's gut wrenching.
But even
seen the movie 50
Attack of the
times.
Clones is my
it's
favorite.
Still gut wrenching.
And that's what this show will be. It's like every time you rewatch Acolyte, episode 5 is still gonna hit. It's still gonna have that same freaking effect. And I like Attack of the Clones. It has some tragedy, Anakin losing his mother, but I just...
Oh, yeah.
But that's what I loved about this show. It wasn't afraid. It was an ensemble piece. It had a frick ton of different characters, and everybody brought their A game to their respective role. That's what I love. It's similar to Andor, has so many different characters. That's when I feel like Star Wars is at its peak performance, when it focuses on the many instead of just the one. I kind of really prefer larger fleshed out stories showing how everyone is entangled. So, my personal preferences lean towards aspects of the Acolyte, and it I know I'm also biased because I've been so desperate to start transcending beyond the timeline as we know it within the Skywalker saga, to finally freaking see something new, get some new people, play in a different, era in the galaxy, because it is so freaking big, and yet it's been condensed to what we've now established as like the Mandoverse, with Mando, Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, all kind of playing into one another.
Yeah.
So I feel like Ahsoka might have a detriment for me because it came out as a point. It's like, yeah, I love that character, but I'm kind of I'm getting antsy in this timeline, and I just really wanted something freaking new. So it's like I'm trying to acknowledge my own biases.
Well, season 2 is going to totally yank you out on Peridea and a whole new
that's
galaxy
true.
with the Mortis gods and Anakin, and so yeah, it's familiar faces, but in totally different contexts. That literally the timeline of the Skywalker saga and the sequels doesn't necessarily come into play because they're in a totally different galaxy. So they could be stuck there doing whatever they want. And that for season 2 for Ahsoka, they've set it up so that we have no clue what's going to happen.
Right. That is one thing about
Peridea.
season 2. I think it's the furthest now from that timeline of between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens. I think this is the furthest we're going post. We're inching closer and closer to sequel territory with that. So I'm excited to see, the consequences of that, the repercussions of Thrawn's return and whatnot. So welcome to Star Wars University, everyone. That's what this feels like, really dissecting and analyzing each show. But
so what do you got? You said Andor, Kenobi.
And then I don't know what would take third.
Acolyte 3?
Maybe because it's more memorable. Granted, there are very memorable things about Ahsoka for me. Equally life-altering moments and hype in that show.
I mean, for me, Book of Boba Fett is at the bottom, but episode 6 of Book of Boba Fett might still be the best episode of any of the shows that we've gotten. With Luke training Gogurt. and meeting Ahsoka and talking about Anakin. Like, that episode 6, A Book of Boba Fett, still might be.
That's why it's like each show has a different strength, a different voice and tone. So it's hard to kind of pit them against each other. And that's not, this is like if we had no choice, our lives depended on it, and I had to create a ranking, which that might actually be a fun video to try to do, like a tier list of, now that we have all these freaking live action shows, where they stand, how I rank them, because I never really think about it that way, because it's just, they all offer something different.
We're gonna watch everything that comes out anyway, so it's just
right.
Basically, like, which one, if you had to go sit down, the way I like to think about it is, if someone said, hey, go watch Star Wars, what are you gonna watch first?
You always want to freaking watch Clone Wars finale.
What are you gonna watch second? Yeah, a Clone Wars finale or Revenge of the Sith are my go-to. But now that Acolyte is out, like, Acolyte, shout out Darian Merriweather, Mike Mayweather, Floyd Mayweather.
What the frick are you saying? What are you reading?
It popped up there. Someone subscribed.
Oh, shout out.
Yeah, Darian subscribed. So, anyway, shout out Darian.
Oh, hey, we used to get the notifications in the chat if somebody subscribed.
The bot is not working.
Come on, bot.
You and the bot. I gotta look at that.
Come on, bot.
Anyway, yeah, like, Clone Wars finale, Revenge of the Sith are two of my go-tos, but we're not talking about those. We're talking about the live action shows, and I think of the live action shows, yes, I would probably go to specific episodes at this point.
No, that's not a flattering angle. Because then you're looking upward at our freaking faces.
Now they can see the lights. The member perk to be able to change those lights. You got to see them to change them. Anyway, Catherine's trying to nerf your member perks, so
they can still see it, and they have this one.
No, you covered it with a book, and now they covered the top lights with a screen.
There we go. There we go.
But anyway, I mean, I think there's the Acolyte as a whole. I think from beginning to end is just like, it feels like one episode that's just chopped up, which I can't say the same confidently about every other show.
You made the good point that the Acolyte could operate, I guess the same is said for Kenobi. It could operate very well if you were to just make it a standalone film. I think it might have been verging on a bit condensed for this one for a standalone film because of the amount of flashbacks that they had to do and the shared time between the past and present. That might have felt a little bit, even now, I would still venture to say that I do feel like the show could have benefited from longer episodes. That's not a critique, that's coming from a selfish place. No. Like, I feel like it had room.
Or just the story less episodes. They could have done it in 6.
Less, but longer duration.
I mean, the cuts they made, where they made the cuts of the episodes, made sense. So I think what you'd have to do is, like, combine episodes 1 and 2. That would make sense. And then, sure, you keep the flashback on its own for 3. 4, the ending of 4 is the most devious, diabolical cut of any episode in any Star Wars show. Cutting straight to the Chimera confrontation. That was completely diabolical. So from entertainment perspective, sure, I understand it, but they could have had 4 and 5 together. And then 6, you could do standalone, 7 standalone, and then 8 the finale. So, like, you could have combined a couple, but it would be interesting to see where else they would draw the line if they were going to cut it like in half from 8 to 4. That'd be a lot, I think.
Be safe to you, Julian. Thanks for popping in for a little bit. Good to see you. And thank you, Alice, for the kind words. Our girl cat is looking fresh and glowing today. I'm glad, because I am sleep deprived AF. But I moisturized a shiz ton to try to compensate, so thank you. I'm glad it's noticeable. Diabolical, indeed. Yeah, that was, that is one thing about this show that I think because it's been really interesting to try to assess and uncover why there has been I hesitate to almost call it division, because that implies that there is a hostility surrounding this show, which there is, but I don't like to imply that, because I think it's totally valid and fair if you dislike this show for your own personal reasons, just like people dislike Book of Boba Fett, but nobody who says they don't like Book of Boba Fett immediately gets roped into this negative, toxic horde corner of the, I'd like to consider them the loudest minority of the fandom. For any of the other shows, if you express that you don't like them, you don't inherently get roped in, versus that loud minority has just been screaming throughout the entirety of this show that I don't like to use the word division, because that just implies that anyone who doesn't like the show gets roped into that, which is not the case. So I hesitate to say it's interesting to analyze what the division has been, but I feel like so much of this show does boil down to, because it's so different, because it's uncharted, because it's entirely new characters, an entirely new timeline, unless you've read, High Republic and have that familiarity, I think so much personal preference is vested in, like, whether you're like me and you've been freaking thirsty for something new, some venturing out beyond what we know. Like, if you've been starved like me for something new and you want to go in with completely new set of characters, completely clean slate and new timeline, versus some people I know watched this show and felt that lack of familiarity, and it just makes you feel like that's tougher to get attached to it, tougher to accept that as Star Wars as we know it, you know?
Well,
So
that's what
it's
happened
like,
with the prequels.
that's true.
Phantom Menace came out and people are like, what is this? This doesn't
That's
look
true.
anything like the original trilogy. It doesn't feel anything like the original trilogy because it's totally different. It's completely different. It's a totally different experience watching those than it is the original trilogy. So, I mean, it makes sense. If you grew up, if you were a fan of the original trilogy for 20 years, and then the Phantom Menace comes out and it's like literally completely different, other than Obi-Wan and Yoda. Then yeah, it can have that effect of, okay, this is different and I'm not used to it yet. But I mean, same with the sequels, it doesn't look any different. It literally looked the exact same as the original trilogy. Literally the same ships, same stormtroopers with slight adjustments. Darth Vader with some more angst and slightly different character design in Kylo Ren. Like, there's a lot that looks, just a bigger Death Star. There's a lot that looks and feels very similar with the sequel trilogy, but then that got hate for the opposite reason, saying, hey, it's too much the same, it's not different enough, like, what's going on, like, all that stuff. A New Hope 2.0, it's like, there's always gonna be criticisms and critiques.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Acolyte it looks familiar to the prequels, but it's so far before that it has a totally different feel to it. It's a new experience.
Yeah. I love how Ruben goes, will you kick me if I passionately disagree with you? And then everyone's like, just be respectful. And then he's like, this is bleep, but bleep. Yeah, I would maybe say that's not the most respectful. Listen, but here's the thing, and I know I talked about this in a previous stream. Unfortunately, the air surrounding this show has made it impossible for anyone to voice a legitimate, valid criticism that doesn't fall under the umbrella of misogyny, racism, sexism, you know, all of that negativity that has unfortunately plagued this show even before it came out, before it could even prove itself. Some people were so set on denying and rejecting and hating this show from the start. Okay, I love how we say be respectful and you still keep going.
Yeah, but Ruben didn't say anything about misogyny or racism or all of those key things that you said. If he just thinks it's dog shit, then that's fine.
Well, you don't have to. You could have used a more polite word. You don't have to use that language. You can just say, I genuinely don't like it.
That's fine.
Yeah, but you can just say, I genuinely, passionately don't like it. And that gives the same vibe. But yes, no, that unfortunately the case is you can't voice, you can't voice any sort of disdain for this show without being roped into that side of things. Similarly to how every positive thing that we've said about this show has attracted, the complete antithesis of like, this is garbage, your opinion is garbage, are you guys high? Like, what is wrong with you if you like this show?
It's because you're going to get 5 hate comments, but thousands of people viewing because they want to see what the positive thoughts have to say. If you have a strong opinion one way or the other, then you're going to attract the strong opinions from the other perspective coming in to voice the antithesis of what your opinion is. But the majority of people are in the middle, just watching. Like, people could be watching the stream right now, but not happen in the chat, just listening because they want to hear what people have to say. But for something that is super strong opinions on either side like this, any type of comment that you're going to make, you're putting yourself out there and at risk of just getting some type of hateful comment back, which, why would you, if you're a person just coming to the stream, watching right now, listen to us talk about what we like or dislike about the show, and you just want to listen, why are you going to chat and say something that you might really like about the show, and then someone's just going to come in and say, hey, you're an idiot, why do you feel that way, like you suck, you're stupid, yada yada yada. Like, why would you subject yourself to that? I mean, we're going to do it because we don't care and we want to talk about it and we want to enjoy the show that we both enjoy, and provide that opportunity for people to get some commentary about the show that is positive.
But I think Chris and I Need a Life, I love that username, you guys are saying it perfectly. At the end of the day, there's simply too many fans with any number of expectations to please. And as I Need a Life suggests, that not every project is going to appease every fan. Watch what you like and don't watch what you don't. Freaking men. That's always what I preach here. I don't know. I wasn't planning on... I already went on rants about this preceding the finale, so we don't have to unhash all of that again. I know we talked about it in the stream leading up to the final episode a few weeks ago, but, you know, at the end of the day, I do want people to be able to genuinely voice valid criticisms they have, because that's the truth of it. And I do think that there are corners of the fandom who have pounced on anyone who's said the slightest thing that isn't necessarily like a glowing review about this show. Or I do feel like people have tried to voice genuine, like, hey, sorry, I don't like it for XYZ reason, and they've been attacked even in spite of
this
being
is not a new
respectful.
problem. This is not a new thing. This happens with every show, every universe, everything ever. Any aspect of entertainment, there's going to be strong opinions that are positive and negative, and they're going to get the most attention. Just like politics, just like religion, just like other things that are just extreme, that generate extreme viewpoints in society. It's just what it is. But the reality is, the majority of people are going to see something and say, yeah, I like this, I didn't like this, it was great. But that's not going to generate
the other reality
particular entertainment.
That I always say is most people are not online as much as we are.
Exactly.
You know, I think you said it perfectly. The most engaged sides of each spectrum to the furthest extremes are the ones who are online, like fighting it out. When really, I think that spectrum of in the middle represents more the majority of the whole fandom as a whole, and how they feel and in their everyday lives. But anyway, this was not the purpose of the stream necessarily, other than to unhash where we want the show to go. Obviously, we've made it clear. Putting this out into the ether, as Leslie Headland has requested, we would love to see a season 2. I think there's perfect opportunity, and I find it really hard to believe. Yes, this story has finality to it, and if we were never to get, more beyond this, it is fun to try to put the pieces together and conclude, like, all right, how did Plagueis overtake, Osha and Chimere probably meet a fateful end. In what way, shape, or form? Or, what is the transition from Osha and Chimere to then Plagueis taking the front row seat? So, I mean, it's like we know where this eventually will go, but yes, it's fun to theorize about how that could have evolved, how that could have come to pass. But I still think, I don't know. My theory is that they definitely wrote this, yes, with enough finality that if it were to just get the cap on season 1, it could exist on its own and be perfectly fine. But with enough seeds to be like, yeah, we can go with a season 2.
No, if there's no season 2, and in my opinion, it's not conclusive enough.
Really?
No, not conclusive enough. For Soul, yeah, he's dead.
For half the cast, they are dead.
Yeah, but no.
Actually, for like 90%.
You set the seeds of Vernestra's rogue dark side apprentice, and she knows about it, and she shoves the whole thing under the rug, and she seemingly is going to go confess to Yoda. That is a serious thing that they're insinuating that needs to be addressed for there to be true resolution before we get to the prequel trilogy. If Yoda knows about this, and he just does the same thing as Vernestra and totally shoves it under the rug, and Vernestra tells him everything that she knows, then that has a serious impact, in my opinion, on Yoda's character. Because he's saying, oh yeah, there's this dark side force wielder who slaughtered all these Jedi. We can't find him. And then they just sit on that for 100 years until the Phantom Menace?
We don't fully know what she went to confess to Yoda.
Which is why we need to know what she went to confess to Yoda.
What does she say?
Because if they insinuated it, and if it's, depending on how they go, like, that could have a serious impact on how we view Yoda as a character.
Well, depending on how much she divulged. She could have just gone in there to be like, hey, in case anyone comes barking up your tree from the Senate involving a internal investigation of former Jedi conduct. Don't worry, I took care of it. It could just be
if it was going to be that, they would have done that in that episode and then closed it out. If it was truly meant to be finite and say, okay, yeah, Vanestra looped in Yoda, but just enough to say, oh, this is the investigation that they're talking about. Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Hey, this happened, but don't worry about it. And then it's just Vanestra and May. That's it. They didn't do that. They showed us Vanestra and May, and Vanestra saying, all right, we need to find my apprentice. And then Vanestra goes and talks to Yoda, basically insinuating that she needs help with this. And so I'm fine. I'm totally fine if Yoda gets involved. Totally fine. But if they leave it open-ended and we don't get a season 2 with how he's involved and what he truly knows, what Vanestra actually tells him, then there's a lot of theories that put some serious holes and
well, I don't know about that, because
condescending light on Yoda's character.
Until we get confirmation, we don't know to what extent. We don't know what the flip she could have told him. Like, maybe she was going to confess to him, I'm about to embark on this journey to find my former apprentice who fell to darkness. I had no idea where he went or what he's been up to, but I've found him, and here's my truth. We have no idea what she could have said. It could have been completely irrelevant to the entire plot at hand. I don't know. If there's one thing we know about Vanestra, it's hard to describe her, because she's not necessarily like shady, but she's clearly one to equally lie by omission or fabricate.
She's completely shady. All she did this whole story, this whole season came to a resolution because she lied by omission. No, she straight up lied. She straight up lied and said that Sol killed himself and he killed all the Jedi. Neither of those are true.
Yeah, she's fabricated.
Sol didn't kill anyone except for Mother Anastasia, which she knows now. But then she knows who killed everyone else. And she doesn't confess that. And she lies and shoves it all the way under the rug, but then admits to May, hey, my dark side pupil, we need to go find him. And then is going to presumably divulge some type of information to Yoda. And if she was just going to lie to Yoda, she would have just lied to Yoda at the end of the season, because that would have put a nice bow on it. The Senate would have been, fended off and appeased, and there'd be no more complaints from the Senate. Yoda and the High Council would be in the same boat. They wouldn't think twice about it again, and then we'd be good to go until the Phantom Menace. But she didn't do that. She didn't do it. So I think the reason she didn't do it is because Yoda is now going to get involved, just like the opposite side, on the dark side. There's now a direct tie to the Sith, and the Sith are going to get involved. So if Plagueis is the Sith Master at this time, if he's going to get involved, it makes sense for the Grand Master of the Jedi Order also to get involved. And yeah, it probably is just going to be, hey, I think this happened. I told the Senate it was this, but I really think that it was my old pupil who presumably turned to the dark side. I felt his presence. I think he's involved somehow, so we got to find him. And then if they go that route and then they find him and then kill him, then it's like, okay, it wasn't a really Sith. It was just a rogue dark side turned Jedi, former Padawan. And it's been resolved, and it could go to that route. But yeah, I think since they did not give us any confirmation of what Vanestra was going to say and how Yoda was going to respond, it wasn't going to be something that is just a resolution and Yoda's done. Because if it was, they would have just given it to us and been like, okay, that's another bow to wrap on this season. Because if they're just going to wait until potential season 2 for Vanestra to say the same thing she said to the Senate, why would they delay it? There'd be no reason to delay it. They should just do it then. The only reason would be if they're undecided on what Yoda's going to do. But there's no shot, I don't think, with how masterfully crafted the plot, all the character threads were in this show in relation to each other. I don't think there's any shot that Leslie doesn't know right now exactly what Yoda's involvement's going to be.
Yeah. I frankly don't mind that he didn't have a larger role to play in all of this, and wouldn't mind if the show were to continue, which Andres made a good point. I do agree with you here. you know, they killed everybody off, they would have to have an entirely new set of characters for the second season. That is something that I think is a good point, and one of the strengths of this season was I loved all of the characters, and I thought they all had really great, even the short-lived ones, such as Yor and Jeki, you know.
They got the first 4.5 episodes.
Not even, because episode 3 was entirely flashback.
Yeah,
so they really did not live beyond like an hour's worth of screen time, maybe. But they still were very impactful. And that's one thing I really liked about this show, that they weren't afraid to introduce great characters and then didn't have the fear of killing them off for the sake of heightening the stakes. But that is a really good point. So much of my enjoyment of this season was I really liked this cast, these characters and their dynamics and relationships. So, you know, season 2 would maybe feel different, or would have to introduce new characters and get new Jedi involved, which I'm not opposed to by any means. So, but that said, I know a big question. Lord Fowl says it perfectly. Do I need to mention that in Dark Disciple, all the Jedi were shady? Yeah, Dark Disciple, the Jedi are literally like tripping. You read that and you're like, who the frick put them in charge? Like, they actually are so dumb. They have the dumbest ideas in that book, because everything that they do is in the name of self-preservation. Like, that's really all it is. It's typical for the Jedi to have tunnel vision, or to try to just bury something under the rug, you know, for the sake of their own, you know, outward perception and whatnot. Because I think that at the end of the day, the Jedi do realize, you know, I don't think Vernestra, when she's confronted by the Senator, I don't think his words, his warnings just went in one ear out the other, you know. I think she was internally fuming during that. I loved that exchange, and I love how absolutely just sassy she was with him and didn't want to freaking hear any of it. But I think she internalized all of it and recognizes the truth in that the Jedi's reputation is more fragile than they perhaps perceive, which is why I'm not shocked by Yoda's lack of involvement here, because yeah, lower level management is going to want to do everything they possibly can to sweep something under the rug, so that they're not in jeopardy, and whatnot, you know. I think that's what was interesting about this show. I thought the Jedi were going to be in more of like peak performance mode, compared to where we see them as essentially soldiers and commanders during the Clone Wars and whatnot, but they're just as fragile and just as, you know, under the watchful eye of the Senate and the galaxy and whatnot, questioning their validity and what authority and power they really do have. And I think that was one of my favorite parts of this show that a lot of people seemingly don't like. I would be hesitant to say that this show portrayed the Jedi as the bad guys. I think it simply proposes, take a step back and actually look at your heroes for once, and don't put anyone on a pedestal. Which is exactly what the Senator was saying to Vernestra. I keep forgetting his name. But he's like, you guys, you're so focused on yourselves and what's in front of you and holding that power that you forget the larger picture. Like, that's, I don't think in any way, shape, or form this show, the message or moral of this was to walk away thinking that the Jedi are bad. I think it was simply to suggest the Jedi are human. And we know exactly what happened. I don't think it contends at all with what we know becomes of them and their fate, which they brought upon themselves. And everybody's suggesting, well, if Yoda was there, how could he not have sensed the Sith or whatnot?
Yeah, the funniest comparison is
they don't sense Darth Sidious under their nose for years.
The opening shots of Attack of the Clones, and it's literally like basically the entire Jedi Council in Palpatine's office.
Yeah,
it's a wide shot of Palpatine in his chair, and then the entire Jedi Council. I mean, Yoda, Mace, Obi-Wan, Ki-Adi-Mundi, they're all in his office, and it's like, oh, how did they not sense the Sith? And it was like,
he was right there.
They're all getting autographs from him, literally at his desk, and they don't sense him then. So, yeah, that one is hilarious to me.
Ooh, Sean makes a good point. What happened to poor Yord's apprentice? She was a character that they introduced. She could be out. She could be somebody involved in the next season.
Yeah, I mean, there's thousands of Jedi. So yeah, the side character Jedi are all dead, but and Sol, obviously one of the main characters, but Venestra and May are going to go on their quest. Chimera and Osha are on their quest, and then you've got Yoda helping out Venestra and May, and then you got Plagueis in some way involved with Chimera and Osha. So that's 6 characters right there. And then obviously you've got whatever other Jedi, if any, are going to get involved. There is plenty to go off, I think, with just those 6
there
key
could
players.
Still be the unsolved, there was no closure necessarily to the theories that Mother Coral survived.
Yep, that too.
Randy says a good thing in this series ending is that it left interesting things that could be solved. None of the Jedi know about the Sith. Vernestra can have a whole second season to look for her pupil, even with Yoda knowing, right? I still think there's a lot of places for this to go. And not that I want to summon or manifest that this would be final, but if it were to leave off on this note, yes,
you would be
there's
satisfied.
Unanswered questions, but it's still like you can piece together. It's still fun to theorize and wonder and question, well, whatever did happen to Osha and Chimera. They're fricked.
Yeah, but I want to see it. I want to see it. I want to see Plagueis come out of his cave and kick their derrieres straight into the water. Like, I want to see Sith training. Like, Osha says she's going to train with Chimera. That's nothing. The scene at the beginning of the episode when Osha puts the helmet on and it's like horror and even Chimera is afraid, like that. Plagueis instilling fear into them. True Sith Master dark side training.
You think that was Plagueis messing with them during that?
I think it could be. I think Plagueis is probably involved with the creation of that helmet. I would think so. But I think Plagueis is going to be Chimera's kind of like Darth Maul, where super acrobatic and cutthroat and just like a monster, aggressive. But Plagueis is obviously the Sith Master, which is the fear, pure evil, intimidation, just doesn't even need to have a lightsaber. Like Palpatine can just literally destroy you with the Force in of itself. So I think seeing this show turn into a true Sith dark side show and putting Osha through the ringer would be.
Durotan says, hell yeah, Tom. I love that.
Yeah,
leave it to Tom, y'all.
You can't just show Plagueis in one little shot. You see his little fingers, and then you see him peeking around,
and it's good.
Plagueis. Yeah, he looked horrifying.
He looked so good.
And horrifying. Like you can't drop that. This figure that we've been waiting to see since 2005 at the opera.
Jerry,
finally seeing this Sith Master, the Master of Palpatine, in the flesh. You can't just give us half a second and then not follow up on season 2 with the full Sith dark side training that this guy embodies. Come on, give it to us.
Well, I also think, there's a lot left for Osha to explore. I feel like they turned an entire new page into just a new chapter for her character. I think it could open a very interesting rift or dynamic. How willingly did she go with Chimera? How much of it was on her own accord? How much of it was influenced by all the poisoning he did to turn her against all the faith she had in the Jedi? How much of it was also because she was trying to liberate May, knowing that she was pretty much in jeopardy, sacrificing herself to just go in her stead?
Yeah, because Chimera went there to kill her. He went to kill May.
Yeah.
So if it's Chimera either kills May, or Chimera agrees to have Osha replace May and then spare May, then that's, I think, why Osha made the decision.
Yeah. So it's I think that leaves it very open to some interesting dynamics to explore in her training and realizing maybe what she's gotten herself into. Because one thing that's interesting, not to compare, because I've seen comparisons of her bleeding her crystal side by side with when we see Dagon do it in Jedi Survivor, and I've seen them in the guise of pitting them against each other for that purpose, to show that it's more intriguing or exciting in the Jedi Survivor version. The only thing
I don't even remember the Jedi Survivor version.
Really?
Nope.
I mainly remember that Dagon, he has an internal shift, versus Osha. Yes, we see her snap in, but it's much more subtle and internal. There I said the same thing about Dagon, but you can feel it and sense it, and as soon as you have to frickin' fight him, you're like, well, shoot, this guy's so far gone. He snapped in an instant, and I would venture to say it's almost harder to believe that kind of side of it, like that he changed so abruptly after coming to and remembering the truth of his past, versus Osha. It is more subtle, it is more subdued and internal, just explosion of anger and rage, but she still feels like her same self. She still feels like her same compassionate self after the fact. So I would be interested to see more if she really sends it and falls further and further into darkness to a point that it changes her and has an impact on her, versus if she were to snap in and realize what she's gotten herself into, if she and Chimera somehow get involved with Plagueis or whatnot and realizing, like, what the frick have I frickin' done? Because she did, grow up in the Jedi Academy, learning everything about, hey, dark side equals bad.
Yeah. Well, she did get hit with it all at the same time, just like Dagon did.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, she got hit with the fact that Soul killed her mother, and then bled the crystal and killed Soul within a matter of minutes. So, like, it did hit her pretty instantly, and I think it makes sense. But she didn't voice it outwardly, like she wasn't screaming and yelling in the moment when she killed Soul, which I think is what makes it so
powerful. One thing that was so wild
is it was just like, stop talking, like she didn't even know what to say. She was just channeling all her hatred into the crystal and into Soul's throat.
I think Soul also, the crystal starts to shift before he's fully dead, and I think he notices it and witnesses it, which makes it even harder. Like, it makes it even all the more gut-wrenching that his final moments, he saw his own Padawan bleed her crystal to red.
Tough mistake there, buddy Soul. Consequences, or actions have consequences, and this is a 16-year manifestation of the consequences of Soul's actions and Endara and Konaka and Torben's actions all come together. But yeah, someone had a fantastic comment. Who was that? Where was it? Andy G. Actual Sith stuff. I don't want to fall in love with the Sith. I want them to be ruthless. And you're right, which is why Plagueis is crucial. Because yeah, when we first see Chimera in episode 5 slaughter all of them, it's like, okay, this guy is cutthroat, snapping necks, shanking, kebabbing, everything that he did, headbutting sabers, like absolutely ruthless. And then, I mean, Osha killing Soul, I think, was absolutely ruthless as well. Like, that was a ruthless, like, fearful moment.
And she drew it out.
Yeah.
She made it last.
Yeah. And then...
to the point that even May, both May and Chimera seemed disturbed by it. Disturbed and shocked.
Yeah. And then... but then you get some, obviously, the end, like May and Osha having the moment and crying, and then Chimera holding her hand and all that stuff. Plagueis isn't gonna he's not gonna tolerate any of that, and I think you wanna hear where I think it's eventually gonna go.
That was the purpose of today. I knew you had theories already. So
speaking of the ruthlessness of the Sith, I think they are gonna play into this kind of love-ish story, because Chimera's saying, like, you can't have emotion and all this stuff and blah 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 blah. So I think that there is some literal, seduction that we got in episode 6. And I think there is some feelings that are starting to develop and all this stuff. Like Osha feels like he's the only one that really she can trust anymore. She can't trust the Jedi anymore. May is out of her life now, so he's all she has left. So I think they are going to feed in this love story a little bit. But at the end of the day, there can only be two. And what a more tragic, perfect Sith ending than to build up a whole second season of their love story and their dark side training, and they go on these missions together and all this stuff. And then Plagueis says, all right, to the death, fight each other, only one apprentice. And if they refuse, he forces them. It's either they both die or one of them lives, and one of them is going to cave and be fueled by the darkness to kill the other person.
I think it would be just as intriguing if they both, if they're not necessarily even forced to, but if they both, you know, if they have those feelings for each other, but want his mastership, like want to be his apprentice even more.
Yeah.
Want to prove themselves more than they feel for one another, and willingly will fight, you know, to beat each other out or sabotage each other.
Yeah.
That could be that was an interesting concept that they planted in, you know, that we got to see a little bit of in the inquisitorial training process in Tales of the Empire, that I just thought really shows how cutthroat, you know, the dark side, the Inquisitors and Sith, very different, but it was cutthroat, and it's just like, your life doesn't matter, prove who can win.
Yeah.
That's who's best. Like,
yeah, and if you force them, you enact the human nature of fear for survival, which Plagueis could easily do. And what's going to happen?
Yeah.
And if you see them both, Osha and Chimera, after a season of developing their love and their feelings for each other, on their whatever dark side training and missions that they go and all this stuff, would be like a great romantic anti-hero story. And then Plagueis forces it out of them. It's like, listen, you two did a great job.
He's like, psych.
Great job, Chimera and Osha. But now you're in the big leagues. You're in the big leagues now, and you're either going to die or you're going to kill the other person and survive. Life or death. What are you going to do? And if you both refuse, it's not going to be a President Snow and give in at the end of the Hunger Games when Katniss and Peeta are about to take the berries and just, you know, kill themselves and call it a day. Suicide's not an option from Plagueis' perspective. He will find a way to force them to go at each other, and then whoever does will be fully embraced. I Need a Life
though makes a good point. Plagueis trains Palpatine. This isn't going to end well for either of them.
Exactly. So maybe he does just kill them both. Maybe that's what it is. They build it all up. They refuse, just like a Hunger Games style ending, and then Plagueis steps in and is like,
frick you.
All right, you're both dead. And literally it's a Plagueis versus Chimera Osha fight, and he kills them both. Maybe that's how it is. Maybe that's what happens. And then Palpatine steps out of the other cave on the other side of the island, and Palpatine peeks out. Little baby Palps, little baby Sheev peeks his head out. And then Plagueis is like, yeah, serves an example to Palpatine. Don't be like them. Don't be like them. Be your own person. And then Palpatine is born. Darth Sidious is enshrined in Sith history when he comes out of his cave.
Andy G asks, just out of curiosity, what is y'all's reasoning for why they couldn't sense all of this happening? The only thing I could think of is that it's somehow clouded by the Vergence. Same reason that the entire Jedi Council in the prequels didn't realize Palpatine was right in front of their faces. And they were fooled, you know? I think it's
clouded by the dark side.
But also clouded by their own... The hubris of the Jedi has always been there. The resistance to believe that they could actually ever be threatened, that they could actually ever succumb to a larger, greater threat. The resistance to believe that one of their own could lead to the entire demise of all of them, you know? Like, I think it's the same. It's especially because, you know, Chimera himself, I don't even think has accepted the Sith title. I think that's still like an enigma to him as well.
Kylo? Did you say Kylo?
Chimera.
Oh.
If I said Kylo, sorry.
I don't know.
You know, I think it's also very different that he didn't fully flaunt that title per se. He wasn't owning it or embracing or relishing that moment to confess, you know, the Sith are back, baby, like, watch your back. Like,
yeah, true, because it's not about the title of the Sith. It's just about kind of what he says, just being able to wield his power how he wants and feel the emotions he wants to feel. It's not about, you know, jumping up the corporate ladder of the Sith and being, a part of an order or probably a cult from their perspective. It's just, hey, I'm super powerful and no one can touch me, but I can feel what I want to feel, do what I want to do. So I'm living a fully free life versus the order and structure and dogmatic narrow view of the Jedi and their arrogance blinding them and all that stuff. Rules and regulations. It's just free.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we don't really get an explanation in the prequels of why the Jedi can't sense Palpatine, even though he's right there, other than what Palpatine says is your arrogance blinds you, Master Yoda. And Yoda makes some comments about, clouded the future is and things like that. So it's like there is definitely something going on where they can't sense him, but yeah. So I think the explanation for why the Jedi can't sense the Sith right in front of their faces is not something that we don't really have a great answer for.
Black Art, what is up? Black Art 360, welcome, first time viewer. Thanks for hanging out.
What's up, Black Art?
Thanks for joining.
Welcome.
And Andy G says, I'll agree to disagree on that one, only because with Palpatine, he didn't massacre Jedi, to my knowledge, going strictly off of the OT and sequel trilogy. With the Acolyte, there was a major loss of life.
True.
That's fair. And I do think the loss of life at the scale that it did happen on Kofar could have been unprecedented. Soul was extremely shaken. Based on his reaction, I don't think that was a typical event, going out on what they thought was a innocent scouting mission and then his entire team dying of at least a dozen Jedi there, seemingly. Like, based on how shaken he was after that, I think it's safe to assume that that's not a common occurrence for them at this point in time. Although everybody is saying, and I want to keep reading more into the High Republic, a lot of people who've read it have said, like, it's dark. Like, people die.
Yeah.
Like, a lot. There's, like, actually a lot of tragedy in the High Republic, which I didn't think was common for this timeline.
But I think this one the difference is that it's a lightsaber. Like, they show up on Kofar, and Venestra's lapdog Jedi, whoever that guy
Mog.
is. Yeah, Mog? That's his name?
Yeah,
Mog?
You think so?
All right, Mog. Venestra and Mog are like, they're lightsaber cuts.
Correct me on that, folks, if I'm wrong.
And they're like, who's the only Jedi here with enough power to kill everybody else? And Venestra leads him to believe it's Soul. But then it ends up with the show where she knows, she's 100% certain in her mind that it's not Soul. But yet she tells the Senate that it is Soul and tarnishes his name for the sake of not creating fear and distrust in the Jedi in the Senate and the citizens of the Republic. So Vernestra knows that it was not Soul and that there is a new dark side threat with a lightsaber that killed everybody else, which I think is new. And this mass casualty event where it was a bunch of the Jedi, even the center, he's like, it was multiple Jedi died. He's like, yes, but we're about to go apprehend the suspect.
Yeah.
So I think that it is new territory. But we left season 1 knowing that Vernestra is still, she's aware that she knows who actually killed him. And we're going to go see what happens, more probably discreet. How it gets handled more discreetly with less Jedi.
Bird Church, member for 19 months. Sorry, every time you guys send member chats, we decide to go on tangents. I like watching Star Wars shows, thinking who, separate from the show, is alive and what they're doing at the time. Yeah, Acolyte has Chewie, Jabba, Maz Kanata, etc. So many. That's right. Yeah, Chewie's probably just playing.
Hanging out in her cantina.
Chewie's probably just playing around, being a little kid.
Waiting to yell Han Solo at the top of her lungs, just building it up.
Yeah.
She got like 200 years to go, but she's building it up. Yep.
Prepping for that moment. Yep. Lord Fowl has confirmed. Yeah, lots of characters die in those High Republic books. Yeah, it was hilarious. I think I tweeted a theory, not a theory, but like a prediction of fear that like everybody was gonna freaking die in this show. And somebody responded, "Welcome to the High Republic," with a gif of, did you see that?
I saw that response,
the gif of, like, My Chemical Romance music video, "Welcome to the Black Parade." And I literally cracked the frick up because I didn't realize the way people talk about this era. And again, I've only just started reading Light of the Jedi, but I don't know. I feel like the air surrounding the High Republic, it seems more joyful. That's obviously so wrong. Like, I was shocked to learn that from mainly it was Sawyer when I went on her podcast, Yap Sesh, by the way. You should go actually check them out, y'all. I think they were very close to a subscriber milestone, the Yap Sesh pod.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh. Yeah.
Sawyer and her co-host, they enlightened me like, oh yeah, it's actually super dark, like super traumatic. So I was like, frick, I want to keep reading. But that is another thing about this show. I mean, I never had, stupidly, for some reason, I've been sleeping on the High Republic, even though I'm the one over here, like, out here begging into the ether, like, please give me some new, fresh Star Wars that's in an uncharted timeline. And so there's all these books that it's so much more material. And every time I read more of the Star Wars books, I'm like, why the frick don't I do this more often? Because those stories are gold. They are just as incredible as what we see in the films or like in the shows here. Every time I read a Star Wars book, I'm like, what's wrong with me that I've been sleeping on these? So, but like this show is the first catalyst that really inspired me to like actually pick one of them up and read it.
Because it's still Star Wars. And you love Star Wars, so if you read a Star Wars book, you're still gonna like it. It's just a different medium.
Go figure. Yeah. But it's like there's so many of them. It's like, why am I not reading more of these? Same goes for like so many other people who I think dove into the High Republic for the first time to pregame for this series. And now I'd be so curious to see like what the spike in Plagueis sales for that story, that novel, have been.
That's one of the highest rated Star Wars books of all time.
Yeah, it's like, well, frick, now I want to go read it in case we do get a freaking season 2. It's like, that's another thing about this show that I think hasn't necessarily been appreciated so much, how this has introduced and opened the door of interest for the other material, the written material that deserves just as much praise and attention as, you know, the stuff on screen, which I'm always one to say, like, I'm grateful that, you know, having delved now into like the Lord of the Rings fandom, the Game of Thrones fandom, where you're dealing with a lot more purists on that end who really value the books and hold those as the foundation. And it's like, if you've never, but to the point of
Harry
toxicity,
the books are the foundation.
To the point though of toxicity, where it's like, if you haven't read the books, your opinion isn't valid. You know, that's where I'm trying to go with this.
But again, that's not everybody.
No, it's not everybody, but it's a problem, is what I'm saying. It's a problem that, you know, I have had to deal with for both delving into Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings content, and that's what they have in frickin' common, so you have to fight that off. Where I would venture to say a lot of people have watched Lord of the Rings movies and never picked up those books. You know, same with Game of Thrones. There's a frick ton of books, and they're all this thick, so it's like, but there's still, you don't have to worry about that in the Star Wars fandom. We don't necessarily have book source material that's like, if you've never read this, then I don't trust your opinion because you're not staying true to blah, 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 blah.
And that's, I think, what sets Star Wars apart
and that's
from everything else.
Thank Jesus.
Because there's not duplicate material. Like, if it's a comic or a book, except for, like, the movie novelizations that come after the fact, but they're still, like, roughly the same, just with new perspective. Like, there's no duplicate material. Like, not like Star Trek, where you're going to get the same story in 3 different generations, all remastered, but it's like the same thing. Like, it's not like Batman or superhero movies where it's the same character played by literally different actors over decades telling a different version of the same story. Like, each Star Wars story is its own thing, and it's never going to get duplicated. It's never going to be reproduced. It's never going to get remastered or recasted 40 years down the line. Like, it is each Star Wars TV episode,
well, we don't know
movie,
about that.
Well, they better not, because it's sacred. Like, there's no reason to do it. There's no reason to do it. If they started doing that, then that would be disappointing to see, because it is what separates it from everything else, where it's literally like, you know, you're just going to get that story with those characters one time in history. It's never been duplicated up until this point. Versus Harry Potter, they're remastering Harry Potter. They're literally telling the exact same story with new actors, and HBO is going to milk that cash cow. And then you've got, I mean, we just talked about Star Trek, just telling the same story over and over again. Batman, how many times have we seen the story and origin story of Batman with different actors? And Spider-Man, and and like all these other popular franchises, and even Lord of the Rings. Aren't they doing like a remaster of Lord of the Rings thing? Potentially?
What? I do think Lord of the Rings is about to be revived. We got the Rohirrim, and we've got that new Gollum movie coming out. You might be
so
right.
those aren't like telling the same story again. I thought at one point there was rumors of them like literally remaking the Lord of the Rings trilogy, which is
Please
crazy.
no, please no.
That is a crazy idea because the Lord of the Rings trilogy is arguably
sacred,
perfect.
The sacred text.
So it's like literally probably the most highly
and has stood the test of time. Loved. It's like nothing you could do now would beat that.
Yeah, so it's great. But like Star Wars is, each Star Wars movie is literally its own, and the answer has never been, oh, let's just tell the exact same story, but with new characters and whatnot.
The point
closest thing is Force Awakens, which got some serious heat for A New Hope 2.0.
That I'm making is I favor being a member of the Star Wars fandom versus these other ones, because if you haven't read the books, it's like your opinion might as well be void to some of these people who gatekeep and feel this weird possessive ownership over, God forbid you like Rings of Power, that means you're a fake fan. So for Star Wars, it's like, it's really nice that the books are supplementary material, and nobody's gonna hopefully bash on you if you've not read them. I'm just saying for myself, I feel like I've been sleeping on them, and they are such great supplements. And freaking Lord Fal, I think you're selling everybody on here. Lord Fal is hyping up the tragedy of the High Republic books. Yeah, lots of characters die in those High Republic books. And I think also said that they die in tragic, horrible ways. Huh? Sweet Jesus.
R.I.P. to those Jedi.
There was a question from... I lost it because we've been going on. We've been going. I definitely.
It's been a good conversation. We
I know.
Gotta keep the flow.
But there was a first-time viewer that asked a question, and I freaking lost it. Oh, any thoughts that maybe the Sith are already influencing the Senate slowly but surely? I don't know. That could be other interesting. That's one thing that could also. Thank you for that. Opening up that segue to like another thing that could be interesting for season 2. This tension between the Senate and the Jedi, I wish it hadn't been restricted to just one episode. Yeah, they play into a little bit of it. They allude to it early in the season that the Jedi are already kind of looking over their shoulder at their political rivals, being questioned and challenged. I think the opening that, I wish it hadn't just been, I feel like you could have a whole show of the political tensions between the Senate and the Jedi, and I feel like that could be a larger focus of a second season, hopefully, because that was one of the most intriguing scenes of this whole show, Vernestra being confronted and him basically calling her out and sharing like, most people are on your side, but I'm quicker to question. Like, I think it could be super, super interesting to see more of that explored in a season 2. How much longer should we go here tonight, folks? We usually don't go this late because the episode is usually out by now. This is the first freaking Tuesday where it's not.
Yep. First Tuesday in 8 weeks that we haven't had a show. So, haven't had a show to watch after this. So, I mean, I think we kind of talked about where we would like to see it go in season 2. I think we both definitely want a season 2, given where we left off. Duro Tan, truly can't wait for season 2. Yeah, hopefully we get it. Sith greater than Jedi. I mean, we got the Sith story foundations here, Alice.
Lord Fal says that senator works for Plagueis. I'm calling it.
Yeah, I mean, it could make sense that Plagueis has some political ties, and if his network in politics is what opens the door potentially for Palpatine, or Palpatine kills Plagueis, then takes advantage and sticks his foot in the political door.
Right now, I feel like Plagueis is still just a hermit, like right now, waiting to make moves.
Yeah, I'm with you too. At this moment, I agree. I don't think that he has political ties, and I think the politics aspect, like if it was like if Palpatine was handed the political power that he gets by someone else, I think that would have a negative impact on Palpatine's story too, because the whole point of his character in the prequels is this dude is a master architect and a genius when it comes to political manipulation and grabbing power for himself through politics. So I think if that, if he didn't do that all himself, that would kind of have a negative impact on Palpatine's character. So I like the idea of Plagueis being not politically involved, and eventually Palpatine comes into play and decides, I know how the Sith can really get true power again and dominate the galaxy, is if we work our way up the political chain and then control the government.
Yeah.
And play it off as the martyrs and say, oh, this civil war, in order to secure our safety as a commonwealth of people after winning the war, is to tighten up security and turn to the Empire. And literally everybody, Padme's infamous line of, this is how liberty dies, with thunderous applause, is because of the masterful political scheming that Palpatine was able to do for himself. So.
Yeah. Stanley says, I think season 1 was a setup for a larger story. Plagueis and his rise, the Jedi and the Senate agreed. There are certainly places that they could take this. And I know we talked about this and we were like, well, we'll wait and see how this series ends. But in comparison to where this leaves off and where Kenobi left off, two shows that were seemingly written, not seemingly, they were. Deborah Chow has said this was written and presented and wrapped up with a bow to be one freestanding on its own season, no continuation. Leslie Headland said the same thing, not with the same certainty that there's no, Deborah Chow, I think, has rejected the idea of a season, not rejected it, but she's made it clear this was designed. Yes, this was designed as one.
A limited series.
Yes.
Never.
Leslie Headland
limited series would never attach to the show.
She's voiced similar, sentiments like this is presented to have closure and stand on its own. But I don't think has rejected. She's done the opposite. She's like, voice if you would like to see a season 2. That's the best we can do. So
the only closure was Soul.
Yes. So the point is, if you look at those two shows, it's like, this finale compared to the Kenobi finale, that is so much more finite and conclusive than this. Feels like it was designed to set up a larger story, a larger overarching path here. So, I agree with Jake K. So hyped for season 2 of this show. That to be for the record, I put this out almost as rage bait in a way, because I know that there's a lot of people who are campaigning for the antithesis of what we're asking for right now and are questioning how the frick this could be Tom's favorite of the live action shows, or how the frick anyone could want to see a season 2.
Yeah,
so
I don't care.
Admittedly knew a little bit that this was going to stir the pot for those, but I don't care because we both actually genuinely want a season 2. So if it stirs a pot, so be it. But I should disclaim, as much as I've been talking as if there is a certainty that this has to happen, it's not been confirmed. I think I, put in the title, the title is What's in Store here, and I'm talking about the future of the show. We have no knowledge that it's confirmed.
Yep.
But I'm hoping that even if we can play the smallest part in trying to manifest that, as Leslie has requested herself, the best support you can give is to just use your voice in this platform to, encourage and hopefully motivate for a season 2. But that said, it's not been confirmed yet, sadly. My real true hope after the finale wrapped is that I was going to go on Twitter and immediately see confirmation. Because usually Star Wars is pretty quick, which is why I'm like, I do think allegedly there's something animated in the works. That might be rumors on Twitter.
I don't know. There's a million rumors. We have 4 movies lined up that we don't know anything about and might not even happen anymore. So
don't say that.
The history of Star Wars is premature announcement, and then it gets canceled. It doesn't happen. It changes. All this stuff. So until we get a trailer, or a poster, I'm not buying that it's actually happening until we get it. So. Because of the track record.
I like this point from Sabersmith. Honestly, I'm not sure that I would want that story in live action. It would be better in animation, but that's just me. I agree with you. It's not just you. I think Star Wars animation is capable of telling some of the most powerful stories, and in many aspects does a better job because you can do so much more in animation, and there are certain things about animated shows that they've tried to replicate in live action that just do not cross over. And that transcends beyond Star Wars. I would say that about, the Avatar live action series. Yes, there's things that you get with person to person, actual actors in the room, real human connection, but there's so many things about that show that just don't live up to what you can accomplish in animation. And the same goes for Star Wars. So like, you're not alone in that. I would not be opposed. I want Star Wars animation to freaking go anywhere. I just want it to continue. And I feel like in the past, Star Wars has usually been pretty rapid with their confirmations. For example, when Clone Wars finale, maybe that was the most recent instance of Clone Wars ended, and then pretty immediately after they announced Bad Batch, like right on the tails of that, I feel like. So that's why I have this expectation, like, okay, if something's in the queue, if we really do have a season 2 locked in the bank, my hope was that I was going to log on to Twitter and see it confirmed immediately following the finale, but alas, that did not happen. So hopefully, if we can play the smallest part in making it happen, that was the purpose of today, and we'll continue to beg for that. Thank you both. Loved this stream. Thank you for being here, Durkan. And I really appreciate, the words you were saying about the show, that you really loved it. And that's not to say, if y'all have been voicing dislike for this show, that I don't appreciate you either. For those of you who've managed to seemingly do the impossible and respectfully voice your concerns or critiques about this show in a way that doesn't put it down or demean other people, thank you, because you are proof that it's possible in a internet full of people doing the complete opposite and just roasting this show and anybody who likes it. So Bad Batch, baby, love that animated show. I know, and we've not got confirmation since of something else in the pipeline, and I truly genuinely believe, like, Star Wars animation's so freaking important, and I really 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 hope, like, we cannot sustain, again, I mean this out of a selfish place, we cannot freaking sustain off of just 6 episodes of Tales of Empire, Jedi, other iteration, whatever anthological installment it would be. That is not enough. 6 episodes of that once a year, by no means. Like, that's selfish for me to say, but it's freaking
every
not
company
enough.
has limited resources. So if you've got people working on, it's all comes down to how much they can hire and what their budgets are. So you don't want them to spread too thin with a million different projects.
But
you want to keep it. You want to maximize the resources, your personnel, and your finances that you have.
I know it's coming from a selfish place, but I genuinely do believe so much of the heartbeat of current Star Wars is in the animation. And as we said at the beginning of the show, like, Rebels and Clone Wars, in spite of being, like, are total proof that animated media can transcend and be even better than live action and way more moving. So
if it's a choice between, like, the greatest Star Wars movie, actually returning Star Wars to the big screen and putting all hands on deck to creating an incredible theatrical 3-hour, 2.5-hour Star Wars film to get back on the big screen at the cost of not doing anything else, Disney Plus live action animated,
I guess
I'm taking that.
It's a trade I'm willing to make.
But if it's what we're doing now, is we've got multiple kind of live action projects in the work, the pockets of animation here and there, so they're pumping out a lot of content. But the thing that we're not getting is
the theatrical
movies.
Experience.
We're not getting the movies.
Well, I really freaking hope they continue to do this and do it more. What they started with Ahsoka, releasing mid-season episode 5 to a limited theatrical release. I think that was also like the day before that you could go to a theater. It freaking sold out in a heartbeat, so we didn't end up doing that, but we were able to do it for, ACOLYTE this time, where they released the first 2 episodes a few days prior in select theaters across the country.
That's not the same.
No, but it's
not
something.
The same as a feature film.
It's still better than watching on our own dang couch. You get to congregate in a theater full of Star Wars fans and watch these shows on the big screen. Yeah. Like,
yeah, but think about if we get the Plagueis training Sith film, and it's a feature film, and it's designed and completely architected to be a 2.5-hour theatrical experience of Sith and the dark side. Would you take that, or another 6 episodes on Disney Plus that will continue the story on that platform?
That's
I mean, if
tough.
you're asking me, I'll take Plagueis and whatever Sith torture horror show he's going to put on.
Oh God.
I would prefer that in the theatrical
Well,
format
that's
on the big
another
screen
reason I would
versus
trust
Disney Plus show or versus animation.
You know, I would trust Leslie with, especially where the story left off and the potential for the continuation and where this would lead, the larger threat at hand. Leslie has proven that she's not freaking afraid to snap in and get dark and get tragic and freaking kill off named characters that she created, characters that she freaking wrote, no attachments. You know, she's not afraid to go dive in there, which is, I know it's been not a common, but it's been something that has been voiced in this fandom. Like, there hasn't been that much severe death necessarily, like what we've seen in Acolyte in Star Wars, and it sticks with you, and it just raises the stakes and heightens, you know, the consequences of things. So that's why it's like, I would freaking trust. She's proven that she's not afraid to go that far. So for her to continue this, knowing that she is willing to take those risks and be bold like that, frick yeah. Like,
I mean, I think you can say the same about Deborah Chow with Kenobi. I mean, the Operation Nightfall, the Jedi and the younglings actually dying in the Jedi Temple.
Yeah.
Vader snapping necks and torturing civilians in the street. And then trolling Reva and the death of Tala, and like, there's Kenobi is a dark show.
That's true. They weren't afraid to kill Tala
with the dark tone in that show. Just like Leslie didn't hold back at all in this show, shying away from brutality and the death, and just like, yep, in the snap of a neck, in an instant, that character's gone. And you spent 3.5 episodes building up that character, and bang, like that, they're gone. No hesitation. Done. Out. Gone. Ruthless.
Yeah. Well, are there any poll ideas for this evening? I think the basic one would be, should there be a season 2, but...
Yeah, I mean, either that or just... We could do
I have an
rating.
idea. I have an idea.
Or we could do... How many episodes into season 2 is Plagueis going to kill Osha?
I was going to say, do Osha and Chimere survive? But it's like, the answer to that is frick no.
No.
We know the answer
one of
to
them
that.
Have to die. The rule of 2. Plagueis is going to... Chimere's going to train up Osha to the point where she could potentially kill him and take over. Or, if it doesn't work out, then Chimere's just going to kill Osha. There can only be 2. So, either one of them is Plagueis' apprentice.
Oh, I have an idea.
Or neither of them are compatible, and neither of them have what it takes to be Plagueis' apprentice. And they both die. You either kill your master and become the apprentice, or the master, or you die.
Y'all may fire when ready.
That's how they work.
Assume pole positions. Who would win if it were to come down to Osha versus Chimere to prove themselves to Plagueis? Chimere, 100%. Yeah, as I was typing this, I was like, I think he has the leg up. And we have seen him literally dunk on the Jedi and defeat all of them, literally without breaking a sweat.
If it's at the time of the finale, I'm going Osha.
Really?
Yep. I think Chimere said the whole challenge was, kill a Jedi without a weapon. Osha literally took Master Soul by the Force choke grip and executed him. I think in that moment,
she cracked the code.
Rage is so strong, and it's just her negative Force dark side energy is so strong that in that moment, if it was suddenly Chimere versus Osha, I think Osha wins because of the Force.
Bold
Clearly,
choice.
With the saber, if it's just both are in a neutral mental state and Chimere versus Osha saber battling, Chimere 100%. But if you take that moment in the finale where Osha is feeling mentally and just pure rage and hatred and anger towards the Jedi, Chimere's not in that mental rage state in that moment. Versus what he was at in episode 5 when May betrayed him. And when May betrays him, in that moment, he is full on rage and he slaughters everybody. In this moment, Osha is full on rage, and I think she would have the upper hand power-wise in that moment. Afterwards, afterwards, if it settles down a little bit and they start training, yada yada. If it's just hand-to-hand lightsaber combat, then
I think
you gotta go Chimera. I mean, look at his resume. Look at Chimera's resume.
Yeah, I think you might be.
That's a 1-episode resume.
To your point, though, I'm Team Chimera. I think Chimera totally has the leg up if it were to come down to it, if they had to prove themselves for Plagueis' spot as apprentice. I'd go with Chimera. But to your point about Osha, she seemingly has more to live for. Chimera, whether it was a farce or if it was, true in a sense, he opens himself up to her completely and gives her that free will. Take the saber and kill me. You know you want to. And did it, like, stone cold, like, almost with a subtle undertone of, like, please just do it. Like, I know you want, like, nothing to live for, no fear of death.
Because he fears his master. And if you kill me, it's like, oh, great, I don't have to go deal with cave dweller up there who's totally just going to torture me if I mess up. And if he's, like, out of fear, like, death would be literally what's the word? A gift, a relief. Be sparing him from the torture that is cave dweller Plagueis up there.
Ooh,
that's how he feels.
Randy makes the perfect point, though. Osha is more useful to Plagueis because of the way that she was created. That's fair. That's actually Randy. Very true. She's got the leg up in that regard. But yeah, I guess, I mean, Chimera could be, somebody just asked Chimera versus Vernestra. I think still Chimera.
Vernestra?
I think, we've seen him literally,
Vernestra's devious.
Yeah, she's got her whip, which seemingly she has used. But
yeah, but I mean, we don't really know how powerful she really is, other than she's a master. She's a Jedi Master. But Soul was a Jedi Master, and the rage of Osha was able to kill him, so.
Yeah. Well, as I suspected, most people are in the Chimera camp. Probably because we've seen him absolutely just dunk on. That's another thing. There's so much visually about this show. The choreography especially is hands down the best fight choreography we've seen in any of the live action Star Wars shows.
It's the best live action choreography we've seen since Revenge of the Sith.
Really?
Yeah. All the sequel trilogy movies, all the live action show, this is the best choreography.
That's bold, yeah.
I don't think it is that bold.
I mean, I
think everyone's kind of. I think even every person who watched the show, I haven't seen a single complaint about combat and choreography.
Even the people who don't like this show are like, good fights.
Yeah. But you look at the sequel trilogies and all the other live action shows, it's been like, oh, it's slow or shaky cam, zoomed in cam. Like even with Kenobi, it's like the shaky cam and it's so zoomed in that you can't like appreciate it. Versus this was fast paced. Pretty much wide shots for all of it, so you could appreciate the actual combat. The camera wasn't trying to make up for it. Like, I think the combat in the show is probably unanimously, as close to unanimously appreciated and approved as you could probably get with anything Star Wars related. I think this show takes the cake. So I think this show is undeniably has the best choreography and combat since Revenge of the Sith. Maybe that's another poll. And we could see if we can hit 100%, 100% votes. But I don't want to compare it to Revenge of the Sith because that's like the peak, pinnacle. So I don't know. I don't know. But I mean, they did a fantastic job with the fight choreography.
We got 31 people watching and only 20 votes. Y'all like, subscribe, put your vote in. I'm gonna puke because I never freaking say that shiz, but I'm trying to act more like a actual YouTuber, so bear with me, y'all, through the cringe of it all. But thank you. If you are here, shout out to the 32 people watching. And to those of you who I always gotta give shout out to, if you're lurking and not necessarily engaging in the chat, we still love you. We still appreciate you, and we're still grateful that you're here. Even if you're watching solely just to dunk on us and our opinions, you're still giving us views. So thank you. It still counts. Still driving up that engagement. Hence why I said, I was like, I knew this would be a little bit rage baity, you know, the discussion of a season 2 for this show.
Yeah, what's in store isn't that bad. If it was we needed season 2,
That might be a little more.
That's more, but that's the truth. That's our opinion. That's where we are right now.
Is
So we literally
sincere
need a
opinion.
season 2. I mean, I haven't stopped thinking about the finale since it came out. There's so many questions, and the light at the end of the tunnel is so bright with what they laid in the finale. It's like a season 2 would be incredible. It would be fantastic, and it's to the point where the questions they left are so intriguing that I don't need it. I don't need it. I need it. I need it. I totally need it. I need season 2. So.
Sabersmith, yes. Watch hours still count. Exactly. Whether you're watching because you agree or because you want to rage, it still counts.
Yeah.
It still helps us.
Yeah.
But thank you guys for joining. I wasn't sure what the turnout was going to be this evening because we don't have a show. So that said, going forward, I probably will be doing some polls and reaching out to y'all to see what the frick we should be talking about from here until allegedly December, if that's actually when Skeleton Crew is coming out. But we might pivot to House of the Dragon as the finale approaches. We're gonna do Rings of Power for sure. That might be bleak, but bear with us, y'all. You missed it. In the last stream I did, when you weren't here, I discussed how I was maybe contemplating not reacting to Rings of Power for the second season here, and I talked myself off that ledge. I went in a whole circle of arguing with myself back and forth about what to do. So I've decided we will continue to cover it if even just one person watches those videos, because if one person, I know Alice freaking, this is for you, Alice. If it's just the two of us, Queen, we've got this. But yes, so we'll have Rings of Power. Dune Prophecy, I'm totally probably going to cover that. I might even freaking film reactions to that. Lots still, I think, in store for the latter half of this year. And I, of course, did that poll. I might replace my Tuesday viewings with a different show. The Boys won the poll. As of now, it's in the lead. But other people made a good point to watch perhaps Fallout first, since it only has like 8 episodes. It would be a quicker turnaround. And of course, I'm still sticking with Legend of Korra. I might do a poll for the Korra fans, because I'm thinking of perhaps shifting and altering the way that I've been editing those videos, in which I typically compile like 3 episodes worth of reaction into like a 45 to 50 minute video. I think it would be faster for me. I could get them out at a faster rate if I drop that and I just do 1 episode at a time. Even if those videos are only like 15 minutes long, I'd still be able to stay on top of them and get them out sooner. And especially since we're in the 3rd and 4th seasons here, which are seemingly the most popular, I think it would still do all right. So I might poll you guys to see what you would prefer for those, if it means I could get it out faster, since I kind of go at a snail's pace for those videos. So, but thank you for being patient with me. But yeah, I might want to throw another show into the mix to replace Acolyte here and to kind of stay on track to fill the void.
Well, next month we've got a new Star Wars game.
Frick yes! That's freaking right. Oh my god. Brace yourselves, y'all.
Star Wars Outlaws.
My gameplay is gonna be back, baby!
So we got that coming out. And then Alice, thank you for putting Sean, thanks for putting Catherine's website link into the chat while we're talking about
thank you.
self-promotion. For those who have maybe new and see all the art and stuff on the back wall, the Vader piece and all 4 over there are all handmade art pieces by Cat here. So if anybody is interested in some Star Wars inspired art or other franchise inspired art, or even if you have art piece idea of a vacation you went on, or a family member or a friend or a dog or a pet, if you're looking for, if you have an idea of a piece of art that you'd like to hang on your wall or give to somebody or put in whatever art desires you may have, there's a commissions page on her website, and you can go have Catherine here create a custom piece of art for you. So CatherineLaSalle.com/store or /commissions, and you can check out all the art that's available there. One thing we have nearby here is this Zuko piece. So
and Except
if
our
you like
printer is
Avatar,
freaking
if
broken
you're like, well,
right now.
you don't disclose that. This Zuko piece is primed and ready to go. It's already there. There's plenty on standby. So
anyway,
yeah. So if anybody has any art ideas or is looking for someone to create a piece that they've always wanted to have made, whatever it may be, a scenic landscape, a portrait, a pet,
okay,
a fantasy thing, whatever.
We don't have to keep going. We don't have to. Thank you. You guys are better at my self-promotion than I am. Alice, I love this. Play the stream in the background. Get that algorithm going, boys and girls. Yes. I should be saying this at the end of every stream. Even if you have watched, play it on repeat. Go back and rewatch the reactions. Thank you guys for contributing in the polls and whatnot. I love your House of the Dragon reactions. Thank you, Sabersmith. Those are very interesting because people feel so differently about the show, and I feel like I get flack every week for a different element of my commentary and whatnot, because I think people are very protective of their favorite characters in the show, and like every other week I'm dunking on one of them. So stay tuned though. After we wrap up this evening's task is going to finish editing my reaction to this week's episode. Very exciting. Lots of
You did watch it, right?
I did.
Yes,
Okay.
I
did. Very interesting stuff going on. Lots of fire, lots of talented stuntmen. Shout out, R.I.P. So stay tuned for that. That should hopefully be going up later this week, hopefully by tomorrow. As will my Legend of Korra reaction. And members, stay tuned. I think Thursday, I freaking have to lock in. I think we've got to do a Deadpool 2 reaction this week. So stay tuned, y'all. I know I haven't done a members only stream this month. It has freaking flown by. I can't believe it's already going to be August soon. But stay tuned, you guys. That will be in the queue. That is a new kind of member perk going on right now. I don't know how long it will last, but for the moment we are doing watch parties that will still be available on the channel if you can't join live, and you get my raw, unedited reaction and commentary afterwards. So yes, that's our long-winded self-promotion. Thanks for bearing with us, y'all. Thanks for joining on this Tuesday, even though we are Acolyte-less the first week without it, but alas, we will prevail. We will soldier on. Thank you guys so much for watching. Frick, I usually at this point say enjoy the episode, but nothing to watch.
Sadly, it is over.
But
one more point of self-promotion. Jake asks, would you ever post time-lapse of creating one of those pieces? Yes, Jake. If you go to Kat's channel and go to the playlist section, as of a couple days ago, there's now a playlist of at least all the time-lapse videos that she's posted onto YouTube.
And
also Instagram and TikTok has
we
those as well.
may start integrating live streams, perhaps. Just going live, maybe playing some copyright-free lo-fi music and having some chill, just truly live. Because usually my time-lapses are all sped up, versus I've never done just a live stream of real time, artwork or whatnot. So stay tuned if that would be something y'all are interested in. I might do it to try to just start integrating some more art on this channel and being some more productive. But turning art and YouTube into one. But Mattress Matt, Star Wars will prevail. Heck yes, Star Wars is not dead, y'all. Star Wars is so alive.
That's the energy, Matt.
It is. Frick yes. Thank you guys always for bringing the great energy, and for those of you who are always respectful of one another, we appreciate you. Thank you guys for being willing to share your thoughts and to chat with us and your theories and whatnot going forward. Let's pray for season 2, y'all. If you disagree, that is totally okay. Whatever you want for the future of this show, we respect it and appreciate you guys hanging out and letting us ramble again. Frick, I cannot believe we're not going to go sit down and watch an episode right now. I'm so upset.
We can just rewatch the show.
That's true. That is true.
We're going to go rewatch all the episodes right after this.
Right now. Hope you guys are having a great day. Hope you'll have a great rest of your day, night, morning, evening, 3 a.m., wherever you may be. Have a great rest of your week, a great weekend ahead, even though it's only Tuesday, but we will prevail. Keep going. Almost August. Happy summer, happy life, happy Tuesday. I'm going to finally go.
Happy winter in Australia.
Yes.
Well, I hope you're enjoying the winter, Alice.
Thank y'all for watching. Thank you for being here. And have a great rest of your evening or day, folks. And we'll see y'all again very, very soon.
Yes. Yeah. See you next week.
Bye, friends.